Hey there, everyone. Paul and Karen here. We're in week 9 of our good to great journey that we've been on together, and it's been a fun journey so far. I've really liked it. Karen liked last week the most. If you didn't get to see last week's, it was all about fun. Karen is all about fun. So yeah, she liked that one a lot. That was not a hard chapter for you. But this one's a little tougher, and I think it's going to be tougher from other people too, as we're talking about empowering great people. But before we hit that, I just want to mention, if you haven't let Ellie know yet, the retreat that we're doing in regards to this journey we've been on is this coming Sunday from 4 till
4 to
7.
At the landing.
At the landing, there is childcare. There is available. Let Ellie know.
There's a meal.
There's a meal. So we're going to have a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And we're going to share together and learn a little bit more. So hopefully you can be there for that and enjoy our time together. But today, again, we're talking about empowering great people, being good to great. And Karen, we have to start off that. I like this chapter because it tells me I have to be fat. I think you're very fat, honey.
I think it actually told you to look for fat people.
Look for fat people? Well, honey, I found you. My wife
For
is
the
fat.
first time, we all want to be fat.
That's right. At least, well, if you've read the chapter, you know what we're talking about, and you want to be fat.
And you want to look for other fat people.
Yeah, it's just a funny thing to think about, but we'll get there in a second. But as we talked to this, we looked at that one part of the about the whole idea of a good Christian in comparison to a great Christian.
Yeah.
And that the good chapter, that list of what the attributes of a good Christian alone. I think for most of us, that was a challenging list, just that list alone. Would you agree?
Yep.
What were some? Yeah, what are some of those things?
I'm on page 246. It said, good Christians live the Christian life. They love God, walk in integrity, demonstrate faithfulness to their mates, spend time in the Bible because they want to hear from God, make the effort to discover their spiritual gifts, use those gifts in the local church, give their tithes and offerings, go on mission trips, and help their kids grow up to be godly men and women. They do what God calls them to do, and they serve him well. That sounds good, right?
That sounds fat. Yeah,
sounds
that's
good.
a powerful list. And let's face it, probably all of us have at least one or two things on that list, maybe more, where we're not doing well yet. We're not good yet based on that list. And
And not that that's an exhaustive list that we all have to, in order to be a good Christian, you have to check that off.
Right.
That's just, these are some things that good Christians do.
that Chip thought would be a good part of the list.
But where it transitions is that next paragraph, and it says, great Christians, on the other hand, do all that and then pass it on.
Yeah.
You can be a good Christian by obeying God and loving people, but if you haven't poured your life into others, your life ends with a period. Great Christians end with a comma. Wow.
I know.
I love that.
I do.
I love that.
Going, not a period, but a comma, just passing it on. I think, Karen, you and I, each of us, were thinking back quickly to some of those people who had commas for us, that they empowered us, that they passed on their faith to us. And just powerful. Both of us had parents that did that, number one. But then just some of those godly men and women in our lives who had commas because they handed it off. They passed it on to us.
But it makes me think, too, he talked about his wife in the section about looking under your own roof, right? And that empowering great people starts with those for whom you're morally responsible. So if you're a parent, that's your first place that you should be empowering great people. And I just think about the mothers of the great pastors out there, and how maybe she was at home and doing the mom thing, but then her son or daughter went on to just change and transform hundreds or millions of lives. Like your mom's comma, your mom was not a pastor. She didn't do
She was a mom.
ministry. She was a nurse. She was a mom. And yet her comma leads to all the people whose life you have touched.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. I think I sat back.
Sorry, your head was going off.
Was it really?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. And I think about that, this morning we were dropping Daniel off at kindergarten and both of us, we joked about it, but we're praying for his teacher because we want her to bless Daniel. It's cool to know that she's a new lifer and that's great for us to know that. And so
Right.
just we pray for her. We pray that
Right.
she's going to raise Daniel in the schoolroom to be a good boy. And so we want to raise up our own children for sure, because we want them to become as well in the future, to be great Christians.
Right. Right.
I think
But
that
I think that's just the first challenge for any of
It
us
is.
that have kids in our home.
it is.
Is that, we look at you as a pastor to your life group, and the Bible tells us that pastors are held to a higher standard. So your family needs to come first, and if you've got children in your home, discipling them and empowering them
Important.
has to be above even empowering and loving and discipling your life group.
Yeah, absolutely. And so think through the ways that you do that, and that's a whole nother conversation. And then we got on to fat. Look for
Yes.
fat people.
Faithful, available, and teachable. And
Yeah.
I really liked this because I think, for me, that helps me know in ministry, who should I be pouring into?
Extra.
Because there are people who come and they demand a lot of attention, or they ask for a lot of your time, or they seem really stellar in one of those three ways.
Yeah.
But, maybe they're available. But if they're not teachable, then maybe I'm beating my head against the wall, or
Yeah.
I don't want to say wasting. I don't feel like I'm ever wasting time when I'm
No.
pouring into people, but this helped me to think about who are the people that I should be investing in most.
Because we're going to pastor everybody. We're going to be there for everybody, and
Sure.
we're going to pour into everybody
Right.
to some degree. But then, who are those ones that we're going to just give a little bit extra to, because of the potential?
Sure. And in a life group, it's exactly that. You're pouring into everyone in your life group, but maybe there are those in your life group that are fat.
Yeah, and you're looking to see how the comma that you are, how you can empower them, how you can raise them up for the potential of them becoming even more, maybe future pastors, maybe future life group leaders, whatever that might be. Yeah. So it's such a powerful thing. So keep looking for fat people. It's funny to think about using that acronym, but yet it's a powerful section to really think about who in your life group should you be looking at as far as helping them to take that next level.
And
Yeah.
I think that's a challenge that we would love to put out there for our life groups. Ultimately in life group ministry, life groups should be reproducing.
Yeah. And that's one of those challenges. We talked some of these chapters. The fun chapter wasn't a challenge for you, but some of these chapters.
Some people don't like fun. So
That's
maybe
right.
That's
They don't like fun.
a challenge.
But I think for this one here, it's one of those challenges that we're called to reproduce. We're called to empower, to raise up. It's the Jesus model. He didn't raise up the disciples to just hold on to them and keep them, but we see throughout the text, he's even before they're ready, he's already sending them out well, they're ready because he's with them, that's for sure. But he's sending them out. That's his mindset from the very beginning. I'm empowering them to send them out. And so we challenge you, who in your life group are you looking at to pour extra into? Who's those fat individuals that you can pour extra into to prepare them for going out? And I know some of you, we've had conversations with some of you, the thoughts,
Splitting your group.
splitting your group, of sending some out to be new life group leaders, that is hard. Change is hard. You're not losing them, you're just sending them. And there's a
Empowering
difference.
them.
Empowering them. And,
Yep.
and it's a kingdom thing. And I'm not saying, Karen and I, in our group, we don't want the idea. We like the people in our group, but yet
And any of them could lead a group.
they could. And so we're trying to figure out how can we best reproduce? How can we empower people and raise them up for that next level? And so, but it's hard. Don't think that we're having an easy time with this. We are not. It's a hard conversation. It's a challenging one.
And yet, we talked a little bit about not wanting to be prideful in that we feel like we're the ultimate life group leaders and none of them could ever lead a group.
Absolutely.
Or prideful in hoarding them and therefore keeping them from using their gifts in service and in leading another group.
Absolutely.
There are times at which by not by not empowering someone and sending them off, we're really holding them back and keeping them from the great things that God has in store for them. And so as much as we love the members of our group and would love to hold on to them, we don't also, I don't want to stand before the Lord someday and say, yeah, I held them back. They were ready and I didn't let them go because I wanted them in my group.
It's an ugly word to say, but
it's hard. This is hard is what we're saying, but we also want to be really blunt with it in that none of us want to have that moment where we recognize that, oh, I kept them from becoming who they were created to be.
So this one might take a while. Prayer of discernment of saying, God, help me because I can't, but you can, God. And I get that fully. I really do. That's the hard one, but yet it's important. If
and the
we're not
timing
doing
looks
that,
different, right, for all of us.
It does.
Some of us, it may be next semester that it's time to send someone. Some of us, it might be a couple of years till they're ready to go. But when we look back in our years of ministry and we see the people now that are in ministry of some sort, there's a different kind of pride, right? It's like that parent kind of pride, the good kind, where you're like, I am so proud of them for where God has taken them and what he's doing through them. So
it's cool, because Karen and I, not only did we think back to the people that we were touched by, who raised us up, who empowered us, but we were also thinking about and saying, God, wow, that you've used us because of those people back there that we raised up and now are doing great. And that's some of that's happening here already, that some people that we are helping to empower and just already doing great things. There's 2 guys in my men's life group that are now with their wives going to be starting a new life group. I think at least one of them is still going to be coming to the men's group, but they're now being empowered to do a new life group. And it's so cool to see that.
That's great. Let's just take a couple minutes here and look at Jesus' School of Empowering Others, because I loved this part of the chapter. This, I thought, was...
Well, he's not bad at it.
Jesus?
Yeah,
I want to make sure you didn't mean Chip. Yeah, Jesus.
No, Jesus.
Yeah, so I think, especially as we're looking at those people in our life group that are potential leaders, this is a great way to...
The fat people.
Right. When we find the fat people, then... we bring them in as the first thing, and talks about, Jesus' method of discipleship was to live with his disciples. And so there needs to be more than just our 1 time a week life group meeting. If we're going to raise up other leaders, they need to see us living it in other places is what he's talking about. You need to model it. You need to draw them into your life.
Yeah, because sometimes, even in life groups, we put on that mask a little bit, and we look the good perfect person almost in the life group setting. But sometimes
the leader.
Yeah, sometimes they need to see reality. They need to see that we're real.
That there are dirty dishes in my sink.
Yep.
All the time.
Yeah.
But they need to see how I love my kids, or how I relate to my husband, or all of that, how it is lived out in the day-to-day speaks more than teaching or preaching at
Absolutely.
them.
Going for coffee, going to, if they have kids, going to one of their games or a concert or something, doing life together, bringing them in and doing life together.
So as we do that and they see us in leadership and they start to think, wow, that's really cool, get to see how we're doing our lives, then the next thing is to build them up. So affirming their strengths, inspiring their dreams, and confronting their flaws. So being willing to then say, this is what I see in you that's good, and drawing that out, but this is where I caution you, and being willing to confront some things sometimes too. Yeah.
And sometimes a good way to do that is to read a book with them. If you see, like what we're doing with you guys, reading a book together and talking it through together and learning together, growing together in a certain area that maybe you see that they need to grow in a little bit. But for us, we can always grow too. It's always important.
Sure. And then it's training. And this one is huge, because people need to be taught how to do what they're being called to do. So I just think back to a Bible study group that I used to lead. And that group got to the point where it was too big for me to be the sole leader of that group. It started as a small group and quickly became this huge group. So I needed to put in place small groups within it.
So, honey, did you look for some fat ladies?
I looked for some fat ladies.
Good.
And when I found them and gave them each a small group within that, but then I met with those leaders, with those fat ladies, I met with them to train them.
We're going to send this video to that group of ladies.
Right. I love you all. But it was training then. So I was regularly meeting with them, training them and teaching them, and then, the sending them out, they had their group, but he said, as you send them out, you continue to mentor. And so I continued to meet with them, even as they were now in leadership, so that they were still being trained and mentored and challenged.
How cool could that be for you as you go through this process and bring them in, be with them, train them up, and then send them out, to be able to do that and continuing praying with them and checking in on them and loving on them and celebrating with them the cool things that God is doing through them. I mean, that's fun. That's it.
And there's a comma.
Yeah.
Because
a fun comma, honey. You like fun, right?
I do like fun.
So a fun comma to celebrate with them. And if they're struggling, you mourn with them and you struggle with them to help them take those next steps. That's what Jesus did. You read the Gospels, that's what he did with the disciples. He did life with them. He trained them up. He sent them out. And he celebrated with them and he was with them. The good and the bad. Right. So, yeah.
Before you come on Sunday, read chapter 10. We're going to finish up this study at the retreat this week, in the mini retreat. It's only 3 hours and includes dinner, so it's going to breeze by.
I can't wait. It'll be fun.
It's going to be fun.
Karen's helped leading
it. It is going to be fun, but it's also going to be good, and it's going to be challenging, and I think you will all come away saying, I'm glad I went. And if you don't come, you're going to say, I wish I went. So right now, why don't you get out your phone, text Ellie and say, I will be there on Sunday night. I'm going to change my schedule and make it happen.
Yep. See you then.
See you Sunday.